Time for me to walk over to Jevohn Shepherd, our NBA analyst, and talk about this Oklahoma City win, but I'm told we don't have a lot of time, so I'm going to do a light jog. Usually it's a walk. It's a
cool
light jog. There we go. How are you, my friend?
I'm good.
You and I were just talking off camera how we were surprised Game 3, OKC gets blown out. Not that they lost, but that they got blown out. They bounced back, and in that game, Gilgeous-Alexander, a season-low 14 points, bounces back with a career playoff high of 40 points in Game 4. Jalen Williams, terrific in this one. He had 34 points. How did things change for them from Game 3 to Game 4?
From Game 3 to Game 4, I think there was an adjustment in Shai's mentality because Game 3, like we've seen, didn't have his best one. You know, their point of pickup was a lot lower with him, and I think that kind of threw him off. But today, we've seen him be a bit more aggressive, and what he understood was when the best player on your team is the best player on the floor, or at least the most aggressive player on the floor, it gives your team a chance and opportunity to win the game. And I thought that's what he was. And everybody's going to look at the 40 points. But for me, it's the 10 assists, right? Because he was aggressive. It wasn't that he had a great shooting night, but he stayed aggressive. He stayed trying to get downhill, move the basketball. That got Williams, that got Chet some open shots because he attracts so much attention. He was playing that MVP type basketball. And, you know, again, I referenced the 40 points. And I think, you know, this team finds different ways to win games because they did force Minnesota to turn the basketball over, but it wasn't their typical, we force them to turn it over and then we get out in transition and we convert on all those turnovers. So they had to do a little bit more in the half court, and I thought Shai was exceptional in how he attacked that defense that's sagging off him a bit and taking away those driving lanes, but he was aggressive and he was deliberate. He was one of those guys that just said, I'm not going to leave here with a loss.
40 points, incredible. As for Anthony Edwards and Julius Randle, the Timberwolves stars combined for just 21 points. Now, the Canadian, Nickeil Alexander-Walker, was very good off the bench with 23 points, but ultimately just not enough offense from Minnesota.
Not enough offense, and I think a big part of that is when you look at Anthony Edwards. You know, their leader, their best player is 23 years old. And shoulders down, he's physical, he's talented, he's skilled. But I think between the errors, just him thinking the game and the maturity, it just isn't there yet. And how he started this game in the first half, you've got to be more aggressive. You've got to be a bit more deliberate and assert yourself in that game, just like how SGA did, right? And he just didn't have that. And I think the second best player on their team, Julius Randle, he's just reckless. He's reckless, and for a guy that's a veteran, you know, elder statesman on the team, if Ant's not having it, he's got to be able to have a voice and, you know, get Ant to pick up his play, but if not by example. And he just really didn't do that. And that essentially ultimately cost Minnesota this game.
So Oklahoma City up 3-1 in the series. They're heading back home. Is this series over?
This one's done. This one's done. And you know what? I thought this was going to be a 5-game series anyways. And I think, you know, OKC is playing the best basketball in the league of the teams remaining. And I also think, you know, there's nobody is playing at their level. They have another gear that they can play at consistently. And it's really going to be tough for Minnesota to go to Oklahoma and pick up another one. Yeah. Right? Because I think OKC smells blood. And then you also have SGA, who's a winner, right? He believes that they're supposed to close this thing out, wants to close this thing out. Chet's playing like he's an absolute dog. And Jalen Williams, he's stepping up and playing some really good basketball. So they have shown to win different ways. And I think this is another one where they've got to prove to themselves that, hey, we're a closeout team, right? It's not going to be a 7-game series. It's not going to be a 6-game series. We got to close this thing out, get some rest, and start watching what's going on the East Side.
Speaking of the East Side, are you ready to check out Game 4 of the Eastern Conference Final? We've got it for you Tuesday night right here on TSN 8 Eastern. After the Knicks came back to cut into the series, it's now 2-1 in favor of Indiana. What are you expecting for Game 4?
Cat can play like the last fourth quarter that we just seen from him, and we're going to give New York the edge. We're going to give him. Cat's got to play. He's got to play.
Yeah, we want more aggressiveness from Cat. Cat's a mysterious man. He really is.